Billionaire discovers Housekeeper, saving his mum from a cruel wife. What happened next was amazing. Nathan Foster, a billionaire in Los Angeles, felt the pressure of his gilded cage close in on him. The facade of his life, luxury cars, designer suits and charity galas, was suffocating. He returned home from yet another lavish evening, a forced smile still plastered on his face. As he stepped onto his expansive balcony, the city lights sparkled like jewels, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside him. Would he ever be more than just Nathan Foster, the heir with the perfect life, but an empty heart? The laughter that drifted from inside piqued his interest, pulling him away from his thoughts of despair. Carefully, he opened the sliding door and stepped into the warmth of the living room. His mother, Ruth, the once vibrant matriarch of their family, was beaming as she shared stories with Maria, their housekeeper. Maria, an embodiment of resilience, managed to breathe life into the cold, sterile mansion with her laughter and tales from her own struggles as a single mother. Nathan's chest tightened as he watched the joyful connection between them, something that had become so rare in his own life. Ruth's eyes sparkled in a way Nathan hadn't seen in years, reminding him of a time before Lisa, the social climbing wife who turned every family gathering into a contest of status and wealth. The betrayal hit him like a blow, the realization that his mother thrived in the presence of genuine kindness while suffering in silence under Lisa's table manners, or rather, lack thereof. Should he confront Lisa about her cruelty, or would the repercussions shatter the fragile peace of his marital life? The tension mounted inside him, a conundrum of loyalty to the matriarch versus the challenge of confronting his wife, who had cleverly woven herself into their family's dynamics. Like a marionette master, Lisa manipulated situations to keep her grip on Nathan, fostering an air of complacency that paralyzed him. It was his first moral dilemma, the weight of love for his mother versus the risk of losing everything he'd built with Lisa. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days trickled by, the tension mounting as he absorbed the truth of his family dynamics. Ruth had opened up about her loneliness, revealing how Lisa's disdain had chipped away at her health and happiness. Nathan's regret coursed through him like fire. He could no longer ignore the malicious influence that drained the life from his home. Maria's encouraging words haunted him, a burgeoning courage urging him to take a stand. Yet fear bundled tightly in his stomach. Questioning what it would cost him loomed like a dark cloud. He could feel the distance between him and Lisa as thick as a wall, yet confronting her felt as monumental as climbing Everest. Just as the pressure mounted, a devastating revelation shook the ground beneath him. Secrets, hidden agendas, and the privilege that had blinded him to the truth raced through his mind. Suddenly, Nathan realized he was caught in a web that kept him from understanding what really mattered. Would he muster the courage to confront the toxic power dynamics of his life, or would the fear of expectations snuff out the flickering light of compassion and familial loyalty? The truth was in his grip, yet doubts clawed violently, leaving him wondering if he could face the repercussions of defiance. How far would he go to save his mother and reclaim the essence of family he had lost? The next moment held the power to shift everything, leaving Nathan on the edge of a precipice with nowhere to step but into the unknown. Nathan spent countless nights wrestling with his thoughts, each one colored by the laughter he heard from the living room, a painful reminder of the joy he had let slip away. During the following day, as the sun peeked up over the Los Angeles horizon, Nathan sat in his grand office, papers strewn across his mahogany desk, the epitome of chaos in contrast to his perfectly curated facade. Each document before him felt insignificant, mere props in the play of his life, distracting him from the underlying conflict that consumed him. He closed his eyes, envisioning his mother's frail figure and the spark in her eyes when she spoke with Maria. The juxtaposition of Ruth's spirit against the cold severity of Lisa gripped him, a realization that the real price had been his ability to foster healthy connections. Placing a hand over his heart, he felt the gnawing discontent and realization he was losing the very essence of family. Determined, Nathan took a deep breath, pushing aside the remnants of fleeting distractions. He was ready to confront Lisa, but how would he frame his thoughts? Would he whisper them gently or unleash them with the depth of his pent-up frustration? The choice promised to either sever or reshape his foundation. Maria's encouraging presence kept surfacing in his mind. He recalled her unwavering strength, her gentle laughter that reminded him of simpler times. She too had fought grim odds, and yet here she was, infusing warmth into the cold shadows of his home. What if he could channel that strength? What if he could redefine his own identity in this pivotal moment? As the sun climbed higher, illuminating the sleek lines of his office, Nathan felt the words formulating in his mind, a mix of anger, desperation, and hope. Every timed breath resonated with the intention to finally speak up, both for his mother and himself. He would not choke on the weight of his entitlement any longer. He would unearth the person he had buried under the gilded expectations. Later in the week, Nathan invited Lisa to dinner, an intimate setting designed to avoid the distractions of social settings. He meticulously planned every detail, focusing on the layout of the dining table, the food choice, a blend of both his sophisticated tastes and Ruth's favorites to emphasize familial comfort. He wrestled with the idea of using this sacred space to peel back the layers of deceit and manipulation. As the evening unfolded, Nathan's mind raced with potential responses that could erupt should Lisa counter with her usual defensive retorts. The air hung thick with tension as she arrived, her perfectly manicured aura immediately lighting up the room. Her practiced smile masked a calculating nature he had grown to despise but could never openly express. "Darling, this looks lovely," Lisa remarked, her gaze flitting around the room, assessing, analyzing. A part of him wished she would simply enjoy the moment, but he felt the flush of adrenaline coursing through him. This was the moment he had waited for, the moment when all the betrayals would be addressed, the façade unveiled. "Thank you, Lisa," he replied, his voice steady but internally tumultuous. "I wanted to talk about something important." The words fell heavy between them like lead weights. He watched her demeanor shift, her composure scrambling. Perhaps he had caught her off guard, or perhaps she had expected this conversation all along. Either way, there could be no turning back now. Nathan took a deep breath, the stakes higher than ever, ready to expose the raw truths of their marriage. In that instant, he realized that reclaiming his voice was as crucial as saving his mother's spirit. But the question remained. Would he have the strength to unleash the truths that lay dormant, or would fear shackle him to a life of silent suffering? As he opened his mouth to speak, the doorbell rang, sending a ripple of uncertainty rippling through him. The delicate moment threatened to derail. Who would stand on the other side of the door, and how would they shift the balance of power forged in his mind? Nathan felt the tension in the air shift as he glanced at the door. That unexpected chime yanked him back from the precipice of confrontation. His heart raced, a wild stag caught between the hunter and the path of escape. Lisa's eyebrow arched, a mixture of curiosity and irritation flitting over her carefully composed features. "Are you going to get that?" she asked, her voice laced with an edge he found increasingly irksome. "Right. Just a moment," he muttered, his mind thrumming with possibilities. Who could it be? An unwelcome guest could easily undermine his carefully constructed atmosphere, the very fabric of his resolve. As he approached the door, Nathan's thoughts churned. None of this was supposed to happen. The confrontation was meant to be controlled. He had rehearsed his words, mapped out the emotional landscape meticulously, and now an uninvited intrusion threatened to obliterate it all. Swinging open the door, he was greeted not by a familiar face, but by a stranger, a delivery man holding a large bouquet of flowers. His mind raced, attempting to tie these roses to the intentions behind them. "Delivery for Mrs. Green," the man grinned, oblivious to the chaos swirling within Nathan. "Could you sign here?" With a shaky hand he took the clipboard, feeling the awkwardness seep through him. "Right." He scrawled his name, barely aware of the fragrant blooms now resting on the threshold. As he turned back, He noticed Lisa had rolled her eyes at the extravagant display. "Are we really doing this?" she snapped. "A bouquet during a serious conversation? Please just—" he began. But then he noticed the tags adorning the flowers. Beneath the cerebration of manufactured romanticism lay a card bearing his mother's name, scrawled in elegant cursive. It felt like a slap, reminding him yet again of the mother he had nearly lost in the defilement of their suffocating home. "Who sent those?" Lisa pressed, narrowing her eyes. Her tone bore all the malice of a widow assessing who might outlive her in a game of stakes. "I don't know." He stepped back, torn between his instinct to protect his mother's dignity and the urge to throw the flowers out of existence. All sudden discussions with Lisa vanished against this fresh ambush. No melodrama could compete with the bond he had to salvage with Ruth. Anger ignited. He felt the embers of frustration with Lisa shift into a roaring flame. "This isn't about you and me," he stated, a newfound conviction seeping into his voice. The moment lingered with an electric pulse, waiting for the crack of thunder to set it all ablaze. Lisa's tone turned icy. "Then what is it about, your mother? Or are these just distractions to excuse removing yourself from the marriage you decided to commit to? Do you ever think beyond yourself?" he shot back, the confrontation unspooling between them without warning. Lisa stepped closer, her eyes flashing with disdain. "And what gives you the right to judge me? You've never been the committed husband to begin with." The truth stung, his spirit reeling with the half-guilt and half-justification. For too long he'd let the easy path consume his aspirations, drawing out the fear of being unworthy. Deep down, speculation encircled whether he was enough, indeed, for any relationship beyond transactional. At that moment of exhalation, Nathan sensed the shift in the air, an invisible tether pulling tight between his heart and mind. What was he about to own? He redirected a flicker of despair into resolve, pressing forward despite the self-doubt clawing at him. "Enough," he exclaimed, seizing the lifeline within. "It's time for change. For both of us." He would confront not only Lisa, but the fractured narrative of his life. He'd put his mother's spirit above all, their woven bond igniting potential breakthroughs in his identity, dissolving the grip of fear and victimhood. But before he could spiral further into this internal resolution, Maria's radiant presence flooded into his thoughts. A vision of her strength and no-nonsense understanding sparked within him, reigniting the conviction to face the truth. Nathan glanced at the delivery man standing there, smirking with unintentional voyeurism. The moment hung tightly. The house felt both his prison and his unexpected launchpad toward liberty. "Let's finish this," he asserted to Lisa, and she scoffed softly, downplaying his words, but their weight bore down together. Yet at the precipice of unveiling hard truths, Nathan's phone vibrated, pulling his focus like a tender yet unyielding current. A name appeared on the screen, one that hadn't crossed his mind for years, stirring both intrigue and wariness. The choice stood vividly. They could leave the facade to unravel or step into uncertainty, a world of untested truths. He hesitated just long enough to see the determined glint in Lisa's eyes, setting the stage for imminent conflict. What awaited him on the other side of honesty? Nathan's finger hovered over the phone, a strange mix of dread and anticipation swirling in his chest. The name glared back at him, a ghost from his past he had long since filed away in the recesses of forgotten chapters. Could now be the time to revisit those memories. Inwardly he fought the urge to hit ignore. Ignoring was the path of least resistance, the one that would keep him comfortable but stagnate his growth. It was what had brought him to this tense nexus with Lisa. He inhaled deeply, looking back at the bouquet, an incongruity in their strained reality, a reminder of the love that once sustained him. "Who is it? Someone you need to hide from me?" Lisa had taken a step forward, her interest piqued. The challenge in her voice was unmistakable, a challenge he could barely afford to acknowledge. It's complicated." The words felt weighty, as if he carried the burden of years on his back. "Complicated? You haven't been honest with me in years, Nathan," she shot back, resentment sharp in her voice. "Show me who it is, or don't bother confirming what I already know, that you keep secrets about your past." He turned the phone toward her, their faces inches apart, tension ricocheting through the space between them. Instead of feeling cornered, a surprising calm washed over him. He was at a crossroads, and this call might chart a new course, perhaps a route that finally broke free from Lisa's shadow. "What are you going to do?" he asked, his voice steady. "Turn around and pretend this is all my fault, because honest conversations," he lifted the phone again, "are part of the process." For every word she threw at him, he felt his convictions solidify. They were no longer just words on an emotional battlefield. Each challenge from her chipped away at the uncertainty that had been his constant companion. "Give me a break," Lisa snapped back, folding her arms. "You think this moment means anything if you can't even respond to feelings that don't revolve around you?" Turning away from her retort, Nathan answered the call. "Maria, it's Nathan." Her voice, warm and familiar, floated through the line, cutting through the remnants of tension lingering in the air. He forgot everything, the quarrel, the bouquet, even Lisa's fierce gaze directed at him. "Nathan, I didn't expect to hear from you." Her tone danced between surprise and delight. "Neither did I," he admitted, uncomfortable in his honesty, clinging to the conversation like a lifeline. "But I need to talk." "Sure. Is everything okay?" "Not really. It's about my mom. She's been going through some things and—" He trailed off, unsure how to explain the emotional sludge that filled him, the unresolved guilt and a sense of inadequacy swirling around him. "Take your time." Her voice was soothing, like a balm to his inner turmoil. As he spoke of Ruth, Nathan could feel the grip of his insecurities loosen. Maria's insightful questions helped him untangle the web of emotions, showing him the distinctions between the affection for his mother and the barriers imposed by his marriage. Each revelation polished an edge of clarity about what he truly valued, the dust of self-doubt settling into resolve. Somewhere in the conversation, Nathan realized he was shedding layers he hadn't even known he was wearing. The fears that had paralyzed him were closely tied to each decision he'd made for Lisa rather than for himself. "I think this is what I've needed to hear for a long time," he finally concluded, energy coursing through him. "Thank you." As he hung up, he turned to see Lisa's expression had shifted from confrontation to apprehension. What was that about? Her voice no longer carried its typical venom. "It's about owning my past and facing the future. It's about time you and I had a serious talk about how this marriage really is, don't you think?" Her silence was deafening. Nathan felt the electricity of the earlier moment settle gently into something resolute, a promise to carve out his own path, regardless of the outcome. With his heart pounding in his chest, Nathan stepped closer to Lisa, a storm of emotions swirling within him, fear and determination intertwined. "Ready to finish this?" he asked, his eyes locked onto hers. The weight of the conversation hung heavily, yet the air felt charged with the potential for change. He was done living within the confines of someone else's expectations. The truth awaited, and as he prepared to uproot the dynamics of their fraught relationship, he knew he would not shy away from the intensity of honesty. Something had changed irrevocably, and he was ready for whatever came next. Would their conversation divulge secrets he wasn't prepared for? Nathan looked deeply into Lisa's eyes, gauging her response. The silence that stretched between them felt electric, each second an eternity. He had unveiled a piece of himself she hadn't seen before, and he wondered if perhaps, in this moment, they were finally standing on equal ground, stripped of the familiar power dynamics that had governed their marriage for years. "Finish this?" she echoed, confusion flickering across her face. "What do you mean?" "Yes, finish this conversation. We can't avoid the truth anymore. We're both trapped in a cycle that doesn't serve either of us." His voice remained steady, though every word pushed him closer to vulnerabilities he had kept hidden. Lisa's defenses were in place, but the shadows of uncertainty hung around her. "So what's the truth, Nathan? That you're unhappy? That I've done something wrong?" "It's not about blame," he asserted, feeling a pulse of urgency. "It's simply about understanding where we stand now. We need to acknowledge our lives, our choices, and the pain we've let linger far too long." As he spoke, Nathan felt a newfound focus. The awareness that had bloomed amid his talk with Maria infused him with clarity. It wasn't just about addressing his relationship with Lisa. It was about taking ownership of his past, about forging a path toward authenticity and connection. Lisa dropped her arms, the fight slowly ebbing from her posture. "You're right, this isn't just about you. I've been holding on to my own resentments. I'm just scared of what the future might look like without you." Her acknowledgement caught him off guard. It was the most honest response he had heard from her in years. "Scared of us or scared of change?" he probed, intrigued by the depth of her vulnerability. "Maybe both," she admitted, a tremor edging into her voice. "I always envisioned our life a certain way, and I thought we'd keep it that way. And yet here we are, on the brink of something else." Nathan stepped closer, the vulnerability between them creating an unexpected intimacy. "We can't grow in stagnant waters, Lisa. Isn't it time to chart a new course?" For a heartbeat, it felt as though they stood at the edge of precipice. Nathan knew every moment had the potential to pivot, altering the trajectory of their lives irrevocably. Questions danced in his mind, a burgeoning awareness that burned with urgency. What if they could both step beyond the roles they had been playing? "If we're going to revitalize this, I need to understand your past as well. The secrets I've been keeping were a shield, but what about you?" His voice, though steady, veered into vulnerable territory. Lisa's eyes glimmered with unshed tears. "I'm scared you won't like what you find," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't want to live with the weight of unspoken fears anymore," Nathan responded, his heart racing. "Whatever those secrets may be, let's bring them into the light. Maybe then we can figure out who we really are, apart and together." As the words hung in the air, he felt the tension morphing into something fundamentally different, an invitation to transform, to evolve. Lisa stepped back, her expression shifting from apprehension to contemplation. "Can we really do this? Would you be willing to face the reality of our relationship?" "I've faced the ghosts of my past. I'm ready to confront ours, together. Only then can we make a decision about the future." His gaze bore into hers, a promise unspoken yet palpable. With each word, Nathan felt a weight lifting, the shadows of self-doubt shrinking in the warmth of confrontation. The conversation opened a newfound realm of possibility, a dawning awareness that every relationship requires authentic engagement, and every truth held could either bind them together or set them free. "What if it changes everything?" she asked, a hint of fear threading through her voice. "Then maybe it's a change we both need," he replied, determination surfacing in his tone. "Let's discover the truth together." As the air thickened with vulnerability and potential, the uncharted territory before them felt exhilarating rather than terrifying, igniting a sense of hope in Nathan that had been dormant for too long. The stakes had never been higher, and Nathan fully realized he was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Was this the beginning of real healing, or just another fork in an already complicated journey? Nathan stood firm, the silence between him and Lisa wrapping around them like a dense fog. Moments stretched, curiosity and apprehension animated his thoughts. He had asked for honesty, for transparency, yet the vibrant desire to set the wheels of change in motion clashed with the fear of what those truths might unveil. Lisa moved as if caught in a web of her own creation. "What are we really looking to uncover here?" she questioned, tilting her head. "It feels like everything I thought I knew is crumbling." "Maybe that's exactly what we need," Nathan replied, determination sharpening his voice. "I think this honesty could shed light on our own darkness. Even if it hurts, we will be making room for something real." Nathan felt the edges of fear whispering at the corners of his mind. It was different now. Where he once felt terrified at the thought of conflict, he was steeled by a newfound purpose. He had come too far to revert, too deep into self-discovery to retreat. If his past experiences had taught him anything, it was that discomfort often heralded growth. "Why all these years, Nathan?" Lisa's voice trembled, her defenses cracking as vulnerability washed over her. "Why didn't you push for this before?" He inhaled sharply, diving into the labyrinth of his own psyche. "Because I was complacent. I rode the tide of what was expected instead of seeking what was true. I thought love was about sacrifice, about keeping the peace. But now—" His voice faltered, struck by a wave of reflection. "Now I recognize that real love demands honesty, alignment with our authentic selves." Lisa absorbed his words, her posture shifting as if the weight of every unexamined moment settled into the space between them. "So this is your awakening? You've had a monumental epiphany? It's not just mine, he countered. I want it for both of us. We can't keep tiptoeing around our own fears. We need to dig deeper, explore why it feels so scary to break from the norm. The intensity of the moment surged. Nathan could sense the shifting winds. The navigation of uncharted emotional territory could either unify them or drive a wedge deeper. He leaned closer, captivated, coaxing Lisa's gaze with the urgency necessary for the moment. What do you desire deep down, he pressed. Not for us or for the image of a family, but for yourself. Her hesitation echoed between them. The fear of realization gripped her, but underneath Nathan recognized the flicker of hope. I want to be free, to be authentic to myself, she finally admitted, her voice quaking with the weight of buried truth. Then let's face it together. What are you holding back? Nathan's heart raced with his unabashed push. He was ready to explore the unknown shadows of her past and his own. The walls around Lisa crumbled, and Nathan noted her breath hitching, emotions breaking through the surface. You might not like what you find. My past is filled with mistakes and poor decisions. Vulnerability now bore itself openly, free from the scars of pretense. I'm prepared for anything, Nathan responded, but what I won't do is shy away from the truths that might hurt us. We owe it to ourselves to be honest, to let go of these burdens. A spark ignited in her eyes, the swirling amalgam of trepidation and eagerness weaving a tapestry of shared possibility. Heaving a sigh, Lisa nodded, surveying the emotional terrain they inhabited. I want to embrace this, she finally affirmed, steeling herself. But what if we unearth something we can't handle? Then we'll learn together. Life isn't meant to be circumvented, we must overcome, Nathan replied, the firm resolve drawing him closer to the precipice of change. The real question loomed before them. Would the truths they unearthed lead them toward liberation or destruction? With that thought suspending in the air, Nathan realized they had crossed some elemental boundary, no longer individuals stuck in old roles, but willing participants on a journey to rediscover each other and themselves. As their gazes locked, the promise of exploration pulsed between them. It was exhilarating, terrifying even, yet Nathan recognized this moment could lead to profound revelations, or it could collapse altogether. It was the dynamic interplay of truth and consequence that ignited the deep yearning within him to grasp every moment fully. The doorway to the past stood ajar, but Nathan felt the flicker of readiness to confront whatever lay behind it. The problem was now sharper, how to navigate the unfolding complexities without losing the essence of who they truly were. And in that moment, Nathan could almost sense that profound change was not just inevitable, it was the only way forward. The air between Nathan and Lisa buzzed with the palpable weight of impending revelations. He braced himself for the pivotal moment, teetering on the edge of vulnerability. There was a mix of anticipation and dread flickering in his chest, a reminder of how far he had come. In the past he would have avoided confrontations, letting the current of life guide him through the mundane. Now, however, he felt alive, like a fire had ignited within, fueling him to delve into the depths of their intertwined histories. Let's start with the truth, Nathan said, each word imbued with resolve. What are the stories you've never revealed? I want to understand you, every piece of you. Lisa's initial confidence began to dissipate, revealing the inner struggle that lived beneath the surface. She pressed her lips together, hesitating as if tasting bitter memories. There was a time I thought I had it all figured out, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. But I was lost, Nathan. It felt like wearing a mask all the time. His heart twinged with empathy, an impulse of protection welling up. You've shown me your strength, Lisa, he replied softly. Whatever you've faced, it doesn't define you. We're here to uncover the real you. Breathing deeply, she began to unravel the tightly wound string of her past. I made choices based on fear and insecurity, she continued. I stayed in relationships that suffocated me, afraid of being alone. I compromised my ambitions to fit into someone else's mold. Each confession seemed to chip away at her facade, leaving her exposed yet resilient. As Nathan listened, his mind wandered into the nuances of his own life. How many times had he allowed the expectations of others to shape his path? He recalled his stagnant days in corporate life, chasing promotions without passion, purely for validation. But now every buried emotion felt vital, morphing from regret to inspiration. "What if we wove our stories together?" Nathan suggested, leaning closer, drawn to her openness. "Imagine what we could build if we fully embraced our truths, no more masks." Faltering as she considered his words, Lisa shifted her gaze, a flicker of fear mingling with curiosity. "And if it hurts? What if digging deeper reveals things we're not ready to confront? What if it shatters what we have?" The weight of that question hung heavily in the air. Nathan approached it with conviction. "Perhaps it has to shatter," he sighed, the weight of his own past mingling with hers. "To build something new, we need to dismantle what no longer serves us. It's terrifying, but what lies beyond could be a discovery of our true selves." The stillness hummed, the room dimmed by the gravity of his statement. Lisa met his gaze, the vulnerability morphing into strength as she nodded, taking the leap toward possibility. "And what about you?" she challenged, a spark igniting in her eyes. "What truths do you hide?" Nathan paused, surprise flooding through him. He had focused so intently on her journey that he had momentarily neglected his own. "I've hid my desire for passion, for something greater than just stability," he admitted, internal conflict surfacing. "I feared failure, the judgment of peers, but it's all tied back to those misguided beliefs, just like yours." The warmth of mutual understanding enveloped them, a patchwork quilt of experiences weaving together. They were on the precipice of something profound, driven by the duality of their fears and desires. "Is it strange," Lisa began, her voice softer now, "to think that facing our pasts could bring us closer?" Nathan was struck by the beauty of her thought. "No, it's essential," he replied, a newfound fire igniting in his belly. "Transformation is born from understanding, and we must be brave enough to witness each other's truths." As they shared this intimate space, Nathan felt the tension he had once associated with vulnerability dissolve into a tide of liberation. In the crossroads of their revelations, he envisioned paths stretching out before them, each leading to an uncharted territory where only authenticity awaited. Suddenly a realization pierced the atmosphere. What if they weren't just confronting past failures, but were on the verge of igniting ambitions that had long been buried? The concept of building something greater than themselves began brewing within, a project born of shared truth. But then a sharp pang of uncertainty tugged at him. Could they really unravel their pasts without losing each other in the process? Would the unearthing of hidden stories transform their connection into something stronger, or risk breaking it apart as they delved into messy truths? The moment teetered there, suspended, as they both anticipated the leap into the unknown, a point where trusting each other could either lead to redemption or despair. And just as Nathan prepared to breathe out his next words, the piercing sound of his phone's notification broke the charged silence, drawing them from their reverie. Who could be stirring outside their sacred space of honesty? What new developments threatened to distract them from their path of discovery? Nathan's heart raced as he glanced down at his phone, the intensity of their conversation hanging like a fragile thread in the air. The sudden intrusion felt like a damning reminder of the world outside their intimate bubble. He picked up the device, the screen lighting up with a notification. An email from his boss. It could wait, he thought, but the apprehension in his gut screamed differently. "Sorry, just give me a second," he mumbled, though his mind was still tethered to Lisa's question. What truths lay buried beneath his carefully curated exterior? As he scrolled through the email, a flurry of thoughts clouded his judgment. The autopilot Nathan, the one who had parried challenges without true engagement, tried to resurface. Wouldn't it be easier to brush aside the intensity of moments like these and scramble back into comfort? He exhaled sharply, trying to shake off the notion. It would be a betrayal to the progress they were both striving for, and nothing was more sobering than the fire ignited by their revelations. Enduring discomfort was an integral part of growth, he reminded himself. He's interested in an update on the project, he eventually said, a hint of frustration slipping into his tone. The usual fluff about metrics and timelines. Lisa studied him with palpable concern, her eyes glimmering with understanding yet shadowed by doubt. Are you going to let that dictate this moment? She challenged, her stance firm. Her challenge ignited a spark in Nathan's consciousness. He realized now was the time to redefine his priorities. He dropped the phone onto the plush couch, allowing the device to remain tethered to the superficial world of deadlines and expectations. No, he affirmed, meeting her gaze head-on. I want to be present. This, whatever this is, matters more than anything else. The weight of his declaration cloaked them, and they both breathed in the gravity of their commitment. Lisa broke the silence, her tone wavering. I don't want you to be pulled back into that life, Nathan. We're on the brink of something different. Different isn't the problem, Lisa, he replied, his conviction hardening. It's acknowledging what we truly want and tackling the tangible fear we've built around those desires. The tension shifted in the space between them, morphing into a pulse of potential. So how do we tackle it? She inquired, her voice a mix of hope and uncertainty. He paused, the question sinking in. This wasn't just about peeling away the layers of their individual histories. It was about confronting the shared road ahead and the obstacles they would face along the way. We name our fears, Nathan proposed. We make them real. Only then can we confront them together. Lisa's brow furrowed, but a flicker of determination sparked behind her eyes. Okay, I'll start, she said, squaring her shoulders. My fear is that by embracing my truth, I'll lose everything I held dear. The life I thought I wanted, the relationships that are my safety net. He nodded, feeling the resonance of her words within his chest. I fear that I'll never find a true direction, that I'll remain lost in frustration while everyone else moves on with what they want. There was something liberating about voicing those vulnerabilities aloud. Silently, they began to weave their fears into a pattern that illuminated the obstacles they faced and potentially the paths they needed to pursue. With each shared fear, Nathan felt their connection solidify, but a weighty reality loomed. Was this discovery enough to dismantle the fears that had governed their lives until now? Lisa's expression shifted from uncertainty to determination. But if we put ourselves out there, doesn't that open the door to even more risks? Exactly, Nathan replied, his stomach knotting at the very notion. But think of it this way. The greatest ambitions are often born from the wreckage of our past choices. We can't build if we're afraid of what we might lose. As they navigated these sentiments, the realization sank in. Their journey was no longer about mere self-exploration, but a substantive unraveling, each layer carved deeper than the last. What began as a simple act of sharing developed into a pact of courageous vulnerability. But was it enough to truly transform them? The lingering question was a specter between them. What awaited beyond this moment of connection? The phone chimed again, disrupting the momentum and dragging Nathan back toward the reality he had put on pause. He hesitated before reaching for it, uncertainty gripping him. Would the world insist on pulling him back to safety, or would he be brave enough to embrace the unknown? Nathan's hand hovered over the phone, the familiar urge to retreat into the routine of his daily grind, battling against the pull of the moment he had just shared with Lisa. He could feel the soft hum of their conversation lingering in the air, electrified by the vulnerability they had just embraced. Yet the harsh light of the screen beckoned to him, his boss's demands tugging at ingrained habits of compliance and professionalism. Just a second, he muttered, half to himself as he reluctantly picked up the device. As he read through the email, a sense of disappointment washed over him. The words formed a monotonous drone about productivity and quarterly goals, a continuation of the treadmill he had so desperately hoped to step off of. Anger bubbled within him, not at his employer, but at the endless cycle of expectations. With a decisive motion, Nathan slammed the phone down on the couch, the sound echoing in the small space between them. Sorry about that, he murmured, but this time determination edged his voice. Lisa's expression softened as she observed him regain his focus. You're conflicted, she observed gently, but I can't help but wonder if this isn't about just work anymore. It feels bigger. She was right. This wasn't merely a matter of battling his work obligations. It was about confronting the life he had built around those obligations and the manner in which they had defined him. Nathan allowed the weight of her truth to settle in. He was wrestling with the possibilities of who he could become if he stepped fully into this moment. What if, he began, slowly gauging the implications of his words, we took this commitment seriously? If we acknowledge our fears, how do we build ourselves back up? It's one thing to recognize the layers, but what's next? It means accepting the fact that our fears don't define us, but they've shaped our choices, Lisa replied, her eyes gleaming with understanding and encouragement. We need to dig deeper. Dig deeper how? The question emerged from him almost instinctively. I'm starting to fear that just talking about this isn't enough. There's action that follows. His resolve solidified as they discussed the tangible steps they could take, whether addressing their work, personal ambitions, or relationships. The spontaneity of the conversation faded into diligent planning. They were no longer simply tossing fears around, but standing on the precipice of a crucial decision. We should create a roadmap, he suggested, their journey evolving into something actionable. What do we want short-term, long-term? How do we measure progress? If we can visualize it, maybe we can actually turn this into our reality. Lisa nodded vigorously, excitement and trepidation blending in her demeanor. Let's outline what we can actively do to steer our lives. I'm thinking of setting milestones, regular check-ins, some form of accountability. What about the things we want to try beyond our comfort zones? A wave of exhilaration washed over Nathan. Here was a chance not just to share feelings, but to enact change. Together. The world around them felt wider, filled with uncharted territories of potential. Yet he sensed an internal shadow looming, the irrational fear that this newfound purpose could wane, just like his past attempts at self-improvement. What if it doesn't work, Lisa? What if we wind up farther away from where we want to be? She reciprocated with an unwavering gaze, a steadying force. Then we'll re-evaluate and pivot. This is about being honest with ourselves first and foremost. The conviction behind her words ignited a flicker in Nathan, an ember of courage against the darkness of uncertainty. They could construct their path together, acknowledging that the journey alone could lead to stumbles, missteps, and recalibrated goals. Okay, he breathed, a newfound determination settling deep within. Let's not just carve out what we want, let's visualize who we could be. As they plunged into a brainstorming frenzy, mapping out aspirations, Nathan could feel the confines of his former life softening. They sketched ideas filled with daring risks, personal aspirations, and professional ventures, each line blossoming with possibility. This was no longer merely an exercise in self-discovery. It was a concrete commitment to forge an entirely new reality. But just as they were reaching a crescendo of hopeful planning, a loud knock on the door echoed through the air, suspending their momentum in a jarring halt. Confusion washed over Nathan's face. Who could be interrupting them now, and how would it impact their fragile atmosphere of newfound ambition? With an uneasy glance exchanged, they both turned toward the door, anticipation and trepidation coalescing. What awaited them on the other side? As Nathan approached the door, he felt the flicker of uncertainty reignite. What uncharted territory awaited him beyond that wooden barrier? Curiosity and trepidation held equal sway in his heart, each knocking louder than the last. He glanced back at Lisa, who mirrored his hesitation. Were they ready for whatever this delivery would bring? He hesitated just long enough to share a fleeting glance with her, a shared moment of vulnerability that hinted they were prepared for anything. He opened the door and was met with a sight that took his breath away. Maria, their housekeeper, stood there with an unexpected warmth radiating from her. A radiant smile lit her face, but what caught Nathan's attention was the large box resting at her feet, emblazoned with bright colors and ribbons. "Congratulations, Nathan," she exclaimed, stepping forward with a joyous enthusiasm that filled the air. "I heard the news about your big promotion at work." Nathan's heart surged. In the whirlwind of confronting his emotions and grappling with the complexities of his marriage, he had forgotten about the promotion he had earned through unyielding determination. After years of self-doubt, he finally found his voice and claimed his place. His hard work had indeed paid off. "Thank you, Maria," he stammered, a genuine grin spreading across his face. The feeling was surreal after weeks of turmoil. This was validation he hadn't anticipated, yet was desperately yearning for. "How did you know?" "I have my ways," she replied, her laughter infectious. You deserve to celebrate, and no celebration is complete without some cake. Come on, let me help you with it. As she handed him the box, Nathan felt the weight of his internal struggles lift slightly, alongside that cake. In this moment, there was a tangible reminder of how far he had come, a glimpse of hope, rekindled ambition, and a realization that he was finally claiming his life back. He stepped aside to let her in, and they returned to the living room where Lisa waited, her brow furrowing with confusion, then softening as she took in the scene. Maria's presence, filled with lightness and genuine care, turned their previously tense atmosphere into one of warmth. "Is that for us?" Lisa questioned, her tone shifting from skepticism to curiosity. "Yes. We're going to celebrate Nathan's promotion," Maria chimed, her enthusiasm infectious. At that moment, Nathan turned to Lisa, the gravity of their conversations about their relationship mingling with the levity of the moment. "You know," he began, newfound confidence coursing through him, "this is a perfect representation of what we've been discussing. We should embrace our lives, our achievements. It's just as profound to take pride in that as it is to address our fears." Lisa, slowly starting to comprehend the significance of what Maria's visit symbolized, nodded in agreement. The pathway to mutual support and understanding was not solely about unearthing past grievances. It was about celebrating progress and honoring the growth they were each experiencing. "I've been so wrapped up in my fear of losing what we built together," she admitted, a light dawning in her eyes. "But acknowledgement of triumphs brings its own sort of connection." Maria beamed as she placed the cake on the table, prompting Nathan and Lisa to look at one another, the shared warmth pulsing through the room. "Let's cut this together," he suggested, a gesture filled with promise and commitment. As they gathered around the table, Nathan felt the tremors of uncertainty dissipating into something more cohesive. Each slice of cake was a reminder that they were not just facing discontent, but were also building a shared foundation. He raised his glass, a sincere invitation for them to join him. "To new beginnings, both in my career and in our relationship. We will embrace the uncomfortable, transforming it into clarity. Together, we can build something meaningful." As they clinked their glasses, an echo of laughter formed, vibrating against the walls of their home, a reminder that happiness and authenticity can still exist amidst struggles. The enchantment of the cake, combined with their mutual commitment, laid the groundwork for a renewed connection. Over slices of cake that tasted like victory, they shared stories, not just of their struggles but also of their dreams. Nathan stepped beyond the shadows of fear. He outlined a vision for the future, one in which they lifted each other up, enriching their relationship, and achieving personal professional goals collectively. With each passing moment, an undeniable realization slipped into Nathan's understanding. His purpose was not just in reshaping his career, but also in redefining his relationship through conscious engagement and active vulnerability. And when he finally turned to Lisa, their eyes locking, he saw not just a partner enshrined in expectation, but a fellow traveler eager to explore this newfound terrain of honesty, the space where fears could be dismantled with truth. He had conquered not just the promotion, but had begun a journey toward integrity within his personal life, accomplishing a balance between his desires and responsibility. Together they had evolved, anchored by the heart of shared purpose. As they finished dessert, Nathan felt a humble pride settle within him. The past had shaped them, but the future would be of their own design. As the sun dipped underneath the Los Angeles skyline, Nathan Foster stood not only as a billionaire, but as a man transformed, one who chose authenticity and connection over expectation and silence. This was his moment of true achievement, a flourishing relationship on the horizon, forged amidst the darkness but buoyed by the brilliance of light. Now this is the time to make a change in your life. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss more exclusive emotional stories that can inspire your own path to transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, ensuring more folks can discover the power of personal growth. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this incredible ending. I want to hear your thoughts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Transformations await those who dare to embrace the unknown.